Welcome to our channel HD Rare Coin 111, your go-to spot for uncovering the incredible world of rare US coins. If you've ever wondered if your old pennies, nickels, or dimes are worth more than face value, you're about to find out. In today's video, we'll be exploring some truly rare coins and their shocking values. And if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. So let's jump in. Top 1. Have you ever looked at the smallest coin in your pocket and thought, could this tiny piece of change actually be worth a fortune? Most people pass them by without a second glance. Dimes, nickels, pennies, the overlooked soldiers of our everyday currency. But every once in a while, one of them hides a secret. A secret worth thousands of dollars. Today, we're uncovering the mystery behind one of the most unexpected treasures in modern American coinage. A coin so common, you've probably held one just like it dozens of times in your life. But in one rare case, it became the centerpiece of a collector's dream. This is the fascinating story of the 1980 Roosevelt 1 dime, a humble 10-cent coin that, under the right conditions, can be worth an absolute fortune. To understand why this tiny coin is so special, we have to begin with a name that echoes through American history: Franklin Delano Roosevelt. FDR. The 32nd President of the United States. The man who led America through the Great Depression and World War II. A visionary who gave us the New Deal, Social Security, and the strongest wartime leadership our country had ever seen. But Roosevelt's story isn't just about political might, it's about resilience. He contracted polio at the age of 39. He was paralyzed from the waist down. And yet, he never let that stop him. He led with strength, grace, and determination, becoming a symbol of hope for millions of Americans. So it makes perfect sense that when he passed away in 1945, the U.S. government wanted to honor him in a meaningful, lasting way. In 1946, the Roosevelt dime was introduced, replacing the Mercury dime, just 1 year after his death. And here's something beautiful: it wasn't just a political tribute. It was also a personal one. Roosevelt had long been associated with the March of Dimes, an organization created to fight polio, the very disease he battled for most of his life. That's why it was chosen. The dime became a legacy coin, a token of both national strength and personal courage. From 1946 to today, the Roosevelt dime has remained in circulation. Quiet, consistent, and almost always overlooked. But in 1980, something unusual happened. Most 1980 Roosevelt dimes were produced at two locations, the Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint. Coins from Denver bear a little D mint mark, while coins from Philadelphia, for the first time in 1980, were supposed to have a P mint mark. Yes, 1980 marked the very first year that Philadelphia added its identifying P to the dime. Before that, coins from Philly were blank, no letter. Just the date. So the presence, or absence, of that little P suddenly became very, very important to collectors. Now imagine this: a dime dated 1980, that's missing its P mint mark. By all official standards, that coin shouldn't exist. But somehow, a few escaped into circulation, dimes struck at the Philadelphia Mint that left the press without the mint mark. They looked just like every other dime, but that missing letter made them instantly rare. And rarity drives value. Only a small number of these 1980 no mint mark dimes have ever been discovered. Most people who had them in their pockets spent them without even noticing. And that's what makes them so exciting. They could be anywhere. One could be in your change jar. One could be stuck between your couch cushions. One could be inside an old birthday card, sealed in a drawer for decades. But the true magic of the 1980 Roosevelt dime isn't just in the mint mark error. There's more to the story. Because one of these rare dimes wasn't just missing the P. It was also struck perfectly, with clean, sharp edges, flawless surfaces, and crisp details from rim to rim. This dime was sent to PCGS, the professional coin grading service, and received a grade of MS68 full bands, an incredibly high mark for such a small, circulated coin. Now, for those unfamiliar, full bands refers to the horizontal bands across the torch on the reverse of the dime. When these are clearly struck and completely visible, it means the coin was created with a well-aligned die and full pressure, a precision strike. That's rare enough on its own, especially in 1980. Combine it with the mint mark error, and what you have is something truly legendary. The coin world was stunned. Collectors buzzed. Forums lit up. Major auction houses began bidding wars to bring this coin into their catalogs. Why? Because this coin represented the perfect storm, an error no one expected, a first-year mint mark, and an unbelievably pristine strike. When it finally went to auction, it was showcased under spotlights. A tiny coin, just 17.91 millimeters in diameter, sitting in a plastic slab, yet drawing the attention of investors, historians, and collectors from around the globe. The bidding began. It climbed higher, and then higher still. And when the gavel finally dropped, the price was one that no one could have predicted for a 10-cent piece struck in 1980. The final value? $90,000. Yes, that's right, $90,000. For a single Roosevelt dime, all because of a missing letter. A flawless strike. And a collector who knew what to look for. And here's the best part. You might have one of these coins right now and not even know it. So go ahead, check your jars. Pull out that box of coins you haven't looked through in years. Take a close look at your 1980 dimes. Look for that tiny P mint mark above the date. And if it's not there, don't spend it, because that dime could be the one. That dime could be worth $90,000. A coin so small, yet carrying so much history, mystery, and money. Sometimes, the biggest surprises come in the smallest packages. And this dime? It might just be the tiniest treasure of them all. Top 2. Most people don't think twice about dimes. They sit forgotten at the bottom of purses, rattle around in car cup holders, or vanish into vending machines. They're tossed into tip jars, dropped into parking meters, or left behind as spare change. But what if I told you that one of those dimes, one from 1991, might not just be worth 10 cents, but a life-changing amount of money? Yes, you heard that right. Hidden in everyday circulation, among the most common and smallest of American coins, is a version of the 1991 Roosevelt one dime that is so rare, so unique, and so valuable, it has stunned coin collectors and numismatists across the country. Let's take a journey into the fascinating world of U.S. coinage and discover how a dime from 1991 could hold a story worth thousands of times more than its face value. Let's start with the man on the coin himself, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. FDR. A towering figure in American history. President for an unprecedented 4 terms. The leader who steered the nation through the Great Depression and the fires of World War II. A symbol of strength, resilience, and dignity. Despite a personal battle with polio that left him wheelchair-bound, he was admired not just for his leadership, but for his commitment to the people. One of his personal causes was the fight against polio, and he became a key figure in the creation of the March of Dimes, an organization that helped fund research and provide care during America's polio crisis. So, when he passed away in 1945, it felt only right that the dime, the smallest circulating U.S. coin, would be chosen to carry his image. The Roosevelt dime was first minted in 1946, and it has remained in production ever since. Year after year, tens of millions are struck at mints across the country. Some go into wallets. Others are stored in banks. A few are kept as keepsakes. And then there are the rare ones, the ones with mistakes, the ones that never should have existed. That brings us to 1991. At first glance, the 1991 Roosevelt dime seems unremarkable. It's part of a modern series. It features the same profile of Roosevelt on the obverse and the torch, oak, and olive branch on the reverse, symbols of liberty, strength, and peace. But as any seasoned collector will tell you, the devil is in the details. In 1991, dimes were struck at 2 primary locations, the Philadelphia Mint, marked with a small P, and the Denver Mint, marked with a D. But something strange happened that year. Some coins left the mint floor with a critical error, one so subtle, most people never noticed it. But for trained eyes, it was like spotting a diamond in a gravel pit. These dimes were missing their mint mark entirely. Now, you might be thinking, so what? It's just a missing letter. But here's why that matters. Starting in 1980, the Philadelphia Mint began adding a P mint mark to all dimes, the first time the Philly Mint had ever used an identifying letter on them. This means that every single dime struck in Philadelphia from 1980 onward was supposed to have a P. No exceptions. So if you find a 1991 Roosevelt dime with no mint mark at all, it means something went seriously wrong in the minting process. It means you may have stumbled upon a no mint mark error coin, an extremely rare event caused by either a worn down die or a missing mint mark punch entirely. And rarity is the lifeblood of value in the coin world. But that's not the only factor. Collectors also obsess over condition. A coin that's been passed around, scuffed, scratched, or tarnished is considered circulated, and it's worth far less. But a coin that was never used, handled only with gloves, and preserved in its original mint state, that's when things get serious. Now imagine this: a 1991 Roosevelt dime, missing its mint mark, discovered in perfect condition, graded MS-68 or higher by the Professional Coin Grading Service, PCGS, or Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, NGC. That means no visible flaws under magnification. Every ridge, every letter, every line is pristine. When such a coin was discovered, the numismatic world took notice. Only a few examples of the 1991 no mint mark dime in high mint state grades have ever surfaced. These aren't coins you find lying around. They're pulled from unsearched rolls, hidden in forgotten coin collections, or tucked away in mint sets that were never opened. One particular specimen, kept safely stored for years in a coin album, was finally sent in for professional grading. The result? A stunning mint state 68, an incredibly rare grade for a 1991 dime, and even rarer for one with a mint mark error. When the coin went to auction, bidding began conservatively. Then, it began to climb, and climb, and climb. Collectors knew exactly what they were looking at. A modern coin, yes. But also a once-in-a-generation error, preserved in near-perfect condition, from a mintage that should have never let it escape in the first place. Phones lit up. Online bids poured in. Private collectors and numismatic investors went head-to-head, and when the gavel finally fell, the price left everyone stunned. That one Roosevelt dime, 10 cents in your hand, sold for a total of $65,000. Yes. 65,000 US dollars. For a coin that you could still, theoretically, find in your pocket change today. And that's the magic of coin collecting. Because in this hobby, in this passion, the extraordinary hides among the ordinary. Not every treasure comes in the form of ancient gold or massive silver bars. Sometimes it comes in a small, silent circle of metal no larger than your fingertip. So the next time you're counting out change or opening a roll of dimes, slow down. Take a look. Examine the year. Check for the mint mark. If you see a 1991 Roosevelt dime, and there's no P or D above the date, you just might be holding a silent superstar. You might be holding your very own $65,000 coin. Because sometimes, the most valuable things in life are hiding in plain sight. Top 3. Every coin tells a story. Sometimes that story is short and simple: a trip to the grocery store, a parking meter, a cup of coffee. But once in a while, a coin carries more than change. It carries mystery, history, rarity, and possibly a shocking amount of money. Today, we're zooming in on one of the smallest coins in American currency, the Roosevelt 1 dime. Specifically, the 1994 edition. A coin that most people would never think twice about. It weighs just 2.27 grams. It's smaller than a bottle cap. And yet, under the right conditions, it can be worth thousands of times more than its face value. Yes, we're talking about a coin with a face value of 10 cents, that could be worth far, far more. So sit tight, coin lovers, collectors, and curious minds. Because this is the story of the 1994 Roosevelt dime, a tiny piece of metal that just might make you rich. Let's begin, as all coin stories should, with the man on the front. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the 32nd President of the United States. Roosevelt wasn't just a leader. He was a symbol of American perseverance. He guided the country through the darkest hours of the Great Depression and stood tall through the devastation of World War II. Even though he was physically bound by polio, he became the embodiment of strength, resilience, and hope. To honor his legacy and his deep connection to the March of Dimes, the U.S. Mint chose Roosevelt to appear on the dime in 1946, just a year after his death. Since then, the Roosevelt dime has become a constant in American life. Year after year, the design has stayed largely the same: Roosevelt's profile on the obverse, and a flaming torch flanked by olive and oak branches on the reverse, symbols of liberty, peace, and strength. Now let's fast forward to the year 1994. Bill Clinton was president. The internet was just beginning to find its way into American homes. Movie theaters were packed with fans watching Forrest Gump and The Lion King. And somewhere in the United States, the U.S. Mint was producing millions of Roosevelt dimes, in Philadelphia, Denver, and for special proof sets, in San Francisco. Most of those dimes went on to live quiet lives. They paid for snacks, vending machine sodas, car washes, and maybe sat for years in dusty piggy banks. But a very, very small number of those 1994 dimes would go on to become something extraordinary. Because here's the thing about coins. Sometimes, the most valuable ones are hiding in plain sight. What makes one 1994 Roosevelt dime worth more than another? The answer lies in two powerful words that every collector lives by: condition and error. First, let's talk about condition. Coin collectors use a grading scale to judge the quality of a coin. This scale ranges from poor, P1, all the way to mint state, MS70, the highest possible grade, reserved only for coins that are virtually flawless, even under magnification. Now, a 1994 dime that's been dropped, scratched, or handled thousands of times might still be worth 10 cents. But a 1994 dime that's been preserved, untouched, uncirculated, with full details and no blemishes, could be worth hundreds, even thousands. And then, there are the errors. That's where things get really interesting, because sometimes, coins leave the mint with mistakes. These are known as mint errors, and while they're not supposed to happen, they do. And collectors love them. Let me explain. In 1994, the mint produced dimes with incredible precision. But no machine is perfect. Some coins were struck off-center. Others were double-struck, meaning they were hit twice by the dies, leaving ghost-like images or doubling of the lettering and numbers. A few coins even had repunched mint marks, tiny but noticeable to a trained eye. And then there are the legends. A small number of 1994 Roosevelt dimes have surfaced with a missing clad layer. That means the outer copper-nickel layer failed to bond to the coin's copper core, giving it a strange appearance, almost golden or reddish in tone. These are extremely rare, and when found in excellent condition, they can demand massive prices at auction. But it gets better. Imagine combining a mint error with a high grade, for example, a 1994 dime with a major error, preserved in mint state 67 or higher. That's the kind of coin collectors dream about. That's the kind of coin that doesn't just catch eyes, it sets records. And guess what? One such coin was found, tucked away in a forgotten proof set, sitting in a plastic holder for nearly 3 decades. This coin had never been touched. Its surfaces were mirror-like. The strike was crisp. The mint mark was doubled, clearly visible under magnification. It was sent to be graded by a leading authentication service. When it returned, it was labeled a top-grade specimen with an identifiable error. The buzz in the coin community was instant. When this 1994 dime hit the auction block, there was silence. Then a flurry of bids. One after the next. Fast. Fierce. Fiercely competitive. Why? Because collectors knew what they were looking at. This wasn't just another modern dime. This was an anomaly. A perfectly preserved piece of American minting history with a visible error, a perfect grade, and a mystery behind its survival. The auction escalated. Phones were ringing. Online bidders were clicking. Veteran collectors fought tooth and nail to add this gem to their collections. And then, finally, the bidding stopped. The hammer dropped. The room fell silent as the winning bid was announced. And that single dime, that tiny coin from 1994, sold for an unbelievable $55,000 US. Yes, $55,000. For a 10-cent coin. Now, let that sink in. Because you might be thinking, could there be more? Could another rare 1994 dime be out there? In someone's pocket? Sitting in a drawer? Forgotten in an old coin jar? The answer is absolutely. These coins don't glow. They don't scream for attention. They blend in. But for those who know what to look for, the slight errors, the missing layers, the sharp strikes, the absence or doubling of a mint mark, these coins tell a very different story. So the next time you get change at the store, or open that dusty coin box in your attic, take a closer look, because the smallest coin in your hand might just hold the biggest surprise of your life, and if you're lucky enough to find the right one. The rare 1994 Roosevelt dime with that perfect storm of error and condition. You could be holding a coin worth not 10 cents, not $10, but $55,000. Top 4. What if I told you that the smallest coin in your pocket could actually be one of the most valuable? A coin so common, you might have dropped one on the ground and never bothered to pick it up. A coin that's overlooked every single day, passed from hand to hand, spent, saved, and forgotten. Yet in one rare case, this same coin turned out to be worth tens of thousands of dollars. Today, we're going to unlock the fascinating story behind the 1999 Roosevelt 1 dime, a coin you probably wouldn't think twice about, until now. So, open your eyes, check your spare change, and buckle up, because this little dime might just blow your mind. Let's go back for a second. Back to the beginning of the dime's history. It was the year 1946. America was emerging from the pain of World War II. And just 1 year earlier, the nation had lost one of its most beloved presidents, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the man who had guided the country through both the Great Depression and the most devastating global conflict in history. To honor his legacy, the U.S. Mint retired the previous dime design, the Mercury dime, and introduced the Roosevelt dime. It wasn't just a tribute to a leader, it was also a nod to his dedication to ending polio through the March of Dimes campaign. A dime, symbolically, became the perfect choice. From that moment on, the Roosevelt dime became a staple in American currency. Year after year, mint after mint, the design remained largely the same. And that brings us to the year 1999. Now, 1999 was a year of anticipation. Y2K fears were building, the internet was booming, and America was heading toward a new millennium. Most people were focused on the future, not their pocket change. But in the coin collecting world, something unusual was happening. The U.S. Mint produced dimes in 1999 at the Philadelphia and Denver facilities. Each coin was marked with a small P or D, just above the date, that tiny mint mark that often goes unnoticed. It's a detail most people don't even look at. But sometimes, that tiny mark, or lack of it, is the key to a coin's true value. Among the millions of 1999 dimes minted that year, a few stood out for reasons that still mystify collectors today. These weren't dimes made of silver, nor were they proofs made for collectors. No, these were standard circulation dimes, the kind you'd find in your change after buying a coffee. But they carried rare errors, minting anomalies, or conditions so pristine they became legends. Let's break this down. There are 3 main reasons a modern dime like the one from 1999 could be worth an absolute fortune: minting errors, striking condition, and rarity of variation. First, let's talk about minting errors. The mint coins are produced at an incredible speed, thousands every minute. But when a machine hiccups, just for a moment, the result can be something extraordinary. In the case of the 1999 Roosevelt dime, some coins were struck off center, causing the design to appear shifted or cut off. Others had clipped planchets, where a portion of the coin is actually missing, as if someone took a bite out of it. Then there are double strikes, brockages, and even dimes that were struck on planchets meant for other coins, like pennies. Yes, there have been documented cases where a 1999 dime was struck on a penny-sized blank. When that happens, the coin looks different in color, size, and thickness. And that kind of error? It's rare. Very rare. Now let's talk about condition. Coin collectors, or numismatists, use a scale from 1 to 70 to judge a coin's grade. A grade of MS 70, mint state 70, means the coin is flawless under 5x magnification. No scratches. No wear. Nothing but perfection. Finding a 1999 dime in mint state 68 or higher, especially with a rare error, is like finding a needle in a haystack. Most of the dimes from that year were used, passed around, spent, pocketed, and lost. Very few remain untouched. But one coin did. It was pulled from a sealed bag of uncirculated dimes, preserved, and eventually submitted for grading. When it returned, it stunned everyone. It had a misaligned die error. The obverse and reverse designs didn't line up correctly. On top of that, the coin had full torch details, sharp lettering, brilliant luster, and zero signs of circulation. In the grading world, this coin was a masterpiece. Collectors took notice. The buzz started in online forums, then spilled into collector magazines, and eventually reached auction houses. The bidding started small. Then came the war. Private collectors, museums, investors. They all saw what this coin represented, not just a small metal disc, but a piece of minting history. A perfect storm of error, condition, and timing. The auction room got quiet. One final bid came in. Higher than anyone expected, and the hammer dropped. The final value of that one tiny, ordinary-looking 1999 Roosevelt dime, $45,000. Yes, you heard that right. $45,000. For a dime you might have walked past on the sidewalk. For a coin you might have spent on a snack. For a piece of change that, under the right conditions, became a life-changing discovery. Now here's the million-dollar question. Could another one still be out there? Could one be sitting in a forgotten change jar in your kitchen? Could it be in a roll of dimes at your local bank? Could it be hiding, right now, in plain sight? Absolutely. That's the beauty of coin collecting. The thrill of the unknown. The possibility that something ordinary is actually extraordinary. If you just look a little closer. So the next time you get change, don't rush to spend it. Take a moment. Check the year. Look for mint marks. Inspect the edges. Study the surfaces. Because one small detail could turn your spare change into a fortune. And who knows, you might just be holding a 1999 Roosevelt dime worth $45,000. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment if you've ever found a rare coin or want help spotting one. There's a whole world of treasure waiting in your pocket. You just have to know where to look. Top 5. In a world where we scroll past headlines, flip through notifications, and barely glance at the change we get from the store, some treasures quietly go unnoticed. Every day, thousands of people receive coins in their hands, dimes, nickels, quarters, without ever realizing that one small mistake in the minting process can transform an ordinary coin into a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. Now let me ask you something. Have you ever truly looked at a dime? I mean, really looked? Because today, we're not talking about gold bars or antique silver. We're talking about something so small it fits between your fingertips. A Roosevelt dime from the year 2000. A coin so tiny, so ordinary, so overlooked, yet under the right conditions, it can be worth a small fortune. Yes. A 10-cent coin, from just a couple of decades ago, could be hiding in your home, your wallet, or a dusty jar on your shelf. And its story is far more valuable than you think. Let's begin with a little history. The Roosevelt dime was first introduced in 1946, the year after the passing of President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, one of the most iconic leaders in American history. It replaced the Mercury dime, and it wasn't just a design change. It was a tribute to a man who led the country through the Great Depression and the Second World War. But more than that, Roosevelt had supported the March of Dimes, a national effort to fight polio. So putting him on the dime? That wasn't just symbolic, it was meaningful. Since then, the Roosevelt dime has remained a consistent figure in American pockets and purses. Fast forward to the year 2000. The world was riding the wave of the new millennium. Technology was booming, the internet was changing everything, and Y2K fears had just faded away. But at the US Mint, another kind of history was being made, quietly, accidentally, and without anyone realizing it. That year alone, more than 2.3 billion dimes were struck between the Philadelphia and Denver mints. That's right, billions with a B. So how, out of billions of coins, does one single dime stand out? The answer lies in a few crucial details that only the most observant eyes would notice. First, let's talk about errors. And no, we're not talking about math mistakes or typos. In coin collecting, an error is like a fingerprint. It's what happens when something doesn't go quite right during the minting process. And that tiny slip up? That one misaligned die or missing metal layer? That's what sends collectors into a frenzy. Some of the most valuable Roosevelt dimes are those with striking errors, like being struck off center, double struck, or even struck on the wrong metal planchet. Imagine seeing a dime that looks part copper, part nickel, but with warped text or missing design details. These are not fake. They are accidental originals. And it gets even more interesting. A few dimes from the year 2000 were discovered with missing clad layers, exposing the copper core beneath. This gives the coin a bronze-like appearance, instantly noticeable to anyone who looks closely. Others were struck with die adjustment errors, resulting in a blurry or faded design. Then there's the no mint mark phenomenon. Though dimes from the year 2000 were typically marked with a P for Philadelphia or a D for Denver, a rare few were found with no mint mark at all. While this was common before 1980, by the year 2000, it became incredibly rare. A no mint mark dime in pristine condition is something that grabs the attention of top-tier collectors. But here's the key. It's not just the error that matters. It's the condition. Coin collectors, or numismatists, use a grading scale from 1 to 70. Coins graded MS65 or higher, that's mint state, are those that have never been used in circulation. They have no scratches, no wear, and still shine the way they did the moment they were struck at the mint. These coins are crisp, clear, and nearly perfect. Now, finding a 2000 dime with a rare minting error is already incredibly unusual. But finding one in mint state 67 or higher? That's the dream. One such coin was found by complete accident. A long-time coin enthusiast was sorting through a roll of dimes he had picked up from the bank. He almost skipped over it, but one coin looked different. At first, it was just the color. Then, he noticed the surface, untouched, glossy, detailed. But the biggest surprise? It was missing the mint mark. And after a second look, the coin also had a slight die shift, visible under magnification. He sent it to be professionally graded. When the results came back, the experts confirmed it, mint state 68, with a verified mint error. It was a stunning find, not just because of the condition, but because of how well preserved it was over 2 decades later. And then came the auction. The bids started pouring in, first from small collectors, then from serious numismatists. One collector in particular had been tracking Roosevelt dime errors for over a decade. To him, this was more than just a coin, it was a piece of minting history. The final moments of the auction were tense. Bids climbed higher and higher. Everyone knew this coin was special. And when the hammer finally dropped, the humble little dime, struck in the year 2000, sold for a jaw-dropping total of $40,000. Yes, $40,000 US. For a coin that originally cost just 10 cents. That's 400,000 times its face value. And here's the best part. There could be more out there. That's right. This wasn't some ancient coin locked away in a museum. This was a dime from the year 2000. That's recent. That's modern. That means coins just like it are still out there, in drawers, jars, banks, even in circulation. So what can you do? Start looking. Check your change. Look at the year. Study the mint mark. Examine the coin's surface. If you find something unusual, an error, a missing mint mark, a different color, a flawless condition, don't ignore it. It might just be the next big discovery. Because sometimes, the rarest treasures aren't buried deep in the earth or sealed in a vault. Sometimes, they're hiding in your pocket. And who knows? The next Roosevelt dime you find from the year 2000 could be worth not 10 cents, but $40,000.